Good afternoon and welcome to the City Club of Portland Friday Forum. City Club is where we bring civic-minded people together to make Portland and Oregon a better place for everyone to live, work, and play. I'm Karen Curvin, City Club President, and I would like to welcome members and guests alike. Those of you who join us today at Sentinel and those of you listening on OPB radio or watching on Portland Community Media. Today, our panel will discuss the local efforts to end homelessness, but first, some announcements. The generous support of City Club's corporate and media partners ensures we put on the state's best civic programs week after week. I'd like to thank our media partners, including Oregon Business Magazine. Our current Friday Forum sponsors are Chevron, Girding Eidlin, Morel Inc., Northwest Natural, Portland Timbers, and Schwabe, Williamson, and Wyatt. We are grateful for your support and commitment to City Club's mission. Please join me in a warm round of applause for them all. City Club's annual membership drive is coming to a close soon, and we want you to join before it's too late. I know that we are very, very close to meeting our goal of 350 new members during this membership drive. We have less than 50 new members to welcome to City Club, so I hope that if you're not a member, you will join today, and if you are a member, you will encourage your friends and colleagues to join as well. For 98 years, City Club has helped shape what Portland is today through research, advocacy, and public forums, and we are here to tackle the tough problems we face now. Government cannot solve these issues alone, nor should it. That's where our members come in and why we need your support. City Club staff will be waiting in the back after the forum to sign you up as a member today. As always, City Club will be live tweeting at today's event. You can follow or mention us at PDX City Club, and be sure to follow the conversation by using the hashtag CityClub in your own tweets. We will be having a Q&A session with Multnomah County Chair Deborah Kafoury and Portland City Commissioner Dan Saltzman at the end of today's program. Members, please come to the microphone to ask your question. For all our audience members, please locate the index cards on the center of your tables and write your questions on them during the forum. Hold your cards up high and City Club staff will collect them prior to the start of Q&A. And now for our program. With research, advocacy, and public forums, the City Club of Portland in 2014 has established a year-long focus to find practical solutions to end local homelessness. What's working and what's not and why? What improvements can actually be done by this time next year? At City Club's April 4th Friday Forum, Nan Roman, President and CEO of the National Alliance to End Homelessness, a leading national voice on the issue of homelessness, offered her views on the causes and evidence-based solutions to end homelessness. Coming up on Friday, September 12th, we are pleased to welcome Gabriel Metcalf, the Executive Director of SPUR, who will join us to discuss lessons that could be learned by Portland from the rapid housing gentrification in the San Francisco Bay Area. SPUR is a nonprofit that conducts research, education, and advocacy to promote good planning and good government. With results due in January, a City Club research committee is studying how the homeless population in Multnomah County can best benefit from federal and state health care reforms. Moderating today's forum is Reggie Aqui. Reggie is an anchor and reporter at KGW NewsChannel 8, where he can be seen Monday through Friday on NewsChannel 8 at 4. In addition to his reporting on homeless issues for KGW, he has also hosted several half-hour programs discussing the subject, including conversations with Portland Mayor Charlie Hales and Commissioners Amanda Fritz and Dan Saltzman on KGW's public affairs program, Straight Talk. Please help me welcome Reggie Aqui and our first panelist to the stage.
Good afternoon. So happy to be here and glad to talk about this topic. We have a great panel here, and as you heard later, we're going to speak to some of our county and city leaders about this very important problem that has plagued our county and city for so many years. First, though, let's get an idea of where we are today. Just how many people are homeless in Multnomah County and in the city of Portland? To give us kind of a baseline of understanding of where we are, I want to introduce to you Traci Manning, who is the director of the Portland Housing Bureau, to help us through this. Traci?
Thank you very much. Thanks so much to City Club for their year-long focus on homelessness, and to the sponsors for helping us all be here together today. We sure appreciate that. So what each of us knows about homelessness in Portland is inevitably based on our personal experience. I've worked in the field for over 20 years, and I know that people who experience homelessness in their life are all very different, just like any group of people. Hands down, some of the most skilled professionals, some of the most calm, compassionate, and frankly centered people I've ever worked side by side with have once experienced homelessness. But what I think I know about homelessness is still influenced by the fact that I've worked downtown for 20 years, and the most prominent images in my mind are the people I see on the streets most days. We're human. We easily extrapolate our own personal experience to being truth for everybody. It's important to be aware of this human tendency so we can overcome it and offer resources that are not what we decide everybody needs, but rather what a person or a family experiencing homelessness says they need. That what we provide may be different for a family in East Portland whose finances were devastated by a health crisis, for the woman who left her job to care for her dying brother and afterward was surprised and then increasingly panicked when job application after job application led nowhere. For the son whose parents haven't been able to reach him since he stopped taking the medications that relieve the symptoms of his mental illness. Or the woman who left with her kids when home got too violent. In Multnomah County, our services are provided primarily by community-based nonprofits. They're funded by federal, county, and city government, and in addition are supported by faith, philanthropic, corporate, and private donations. So currently in Multnomah County organizes efforts around youth and families, and the City of Portland focuses on adult homelessness. Funded services include prevention, safety off the streets, like day centers and shelters, short-term rent assistance, and longer-term housing support for people with heavier service needs. The community-based providers of these services also leverage a vast amount of additional assistance in healthcare and employment and in other resources to help end any one person or family's homelessness. We're going to give you just a quick snapshot, and then we'll have some materials you can pick up if you want more information on the way out. What we know, of course, is that homelessness increased somewhat during the recession. That was primarily among families who experienced devastating economic hardships. Consistently, we know that members of communities of color have been overrepresented in homelessness as well as in poverty. And so far, we know enough to know that we can do a better job by listening to them and funding what they know will work. Couple quick statistics. On the night of our last count, which was in January of 2013, 2,800 people were homeless, either on the street or in shelter. Most of those were adults, but 287 of them were children. That same year, 22,000 people received some kind of service in the system, nearly half of them from communities of color. Portland has several nationally known organizations, and they use evidence-based practices to end people's homelessness. Last year, 2,062 people moved off the streets and into a home. But there's barriers to us doing that work. It seems straightforward, but let's say it. A person or a family experiencing homelessness most needs a home they can afford. During the recession, many people lost their income, and while the economy has started to pick back up in Portland, salaries have remained relatively stagnant, and housing is hard to find. We've hovered around a 3.5% vacancy rate, and rents are increasing rapidly. And finally, for people whose barrier to home is health, addiction, mental illness, access to services has historically been really tough. I'm really excited about the work that the City Club will be doing to look at how the Affordable Care Act may help us. I believe that health care access will be a tremendous new ray of hope in our work to end homelessness. So thank you again for joining us, and I will turn it back over to Reggie and our brilliant panel.
Traci, thank you. So allow me to introduce really quickly who is sitting to my left. We're going to start with Matt Morton. He is the Executive Director of the Native American Youth and Family Center. Matt, thanks for being here. Next, we have Suzanne Hayden, who is the Executive Director of the Citizens Crime Commission. And finally, Leo Rhodes, who, among other things, is an active vendor and board member with Street Roots, and Leo also writes in a column that he has about his issues with homelessness over the years. So please welcome our panel. My first question is, what happened? 10 years ago, the city of Portland announced that we are going to end homelessness in Portland and Multnomah County, and we haven't. In fact, you heard some of the numbers just a second ago. Not only have we not ended homelessness, but the homeless numbers have gone up from 2011 to 2013. The number of people who are literally homeless went up 5%, and that includes people who are in shelters on a nightly basis. You heard the 2,800 number of people who are either on the streets or in shelters, but if you look at a broader number, the broadest definition of homelessness, including people who are living doubled up in homes, who are couch surfing for a while from place to place, that number is closer to 16,000 in Multnomah County. So Matt, what happened?
Great question, Reggie. Thank you. What happened? I think there are a number of things. I mean, there are sort of the social indicators that we can point to, but I think we also need to really point to how do we respond as a community? How do we respond as service organizations that actually reflect what needs to happen within the growing diversity of the community that we see on the streets and in those other conditions of homelessness. So one of the recommendations that I think we need to consider, and I believe this is being considered, is as Traci mentioned, how do we communicate with our population that's homeless right now, and how do they tell us the services that they might need? One of the reports that came out recently in a forum that was sponsored by the Portland Housing Bureau talked about the disparity between the need in communities of color and the services that they're accessing. That means our services right now aren't as relevant as they need to be to those populations. So how do we flip that and really have the political will to flip that and the resources to follow that political will?
That's an interesting, the political will thing is interesting to me, because if anyone was here for the speech that Nan Roman gave, she talked about Portland having in place, and Multnomah County, the services that should be helping the homeless, that there is a capacity there to help these people. And when you talk to people who live outside of Portland, there's this general feeling that, wait, isn't that a place that cares for the homeless and takes care of them? She said that she suggested that perhaps there isn't the political will to help them, that if these services are all there, what's missing is the political will. So I want to talk to somebody who has been on the streets. And I want to ask you, Leo, do you believe that there is a political will in Portland to end homelessness?
I believe that there is a political will, but it's not strong right now. A lot of the people, I'm a homeless advocate and been homeless advocate for over 13 years now. One of the things that I've talked to decision makers, and they've always encouraged me to go on out and speak to the people and bring the people on in, which I did. These are elected officials, senators, representatives, county council, city council people that have asked me to do this, which I did. I did bring them out, or I did go to the people. I told them to come on out to the rallies to talk to the city commissioner or the elected officials. But what happened was they didn't come on out. They didn't come to the rallies because of work, because of something that happened. So the following year, when I seen these individuals again, they said, well, have them come and have them at least call us or email us. So I went back on out and I did the same thing. I said they read the emails, They want you to call. They want to hear from you. You know, get on out there and do this, which it did happen a little bit, but we still need a lot more people to start this conversation, to keep it going. Also, you know,
Leo, can I just interrupt you for a second? How did you end up transitioning from someone who was living on the streets into housing?
I went through the VETS program, the VASH program, and Home Forward. I put in an application. One of the things, though, about my 12 years, I guess I could say, being a chronic homeless person, was that I was trying to get into housing, and I had executive directors trying to get me into housing, saying, you need to be into housing, your health is bad, you know, we need you strong out there. And these executive directors went to these housing, affordable housings, but they couldn't get me in. And they would be shaking their head, you know, like, you know, I tried to get you in. The reason they couldn't get me in was because I didn't fit the criteria of a homeless person for affordable housing, which was a drunk, a druggie, a criminal, mentally ill. I was neither one of those. They told me I was the perfect homeless person to get inside, but I couldn't get in because of those. And it's still like that today.
Well, that raises another interesting point, and I want to ask Suzanne about that. It seems to me, and I'll tell you, just last night I was talking to somebody about this. I was actually getting my hair cut, so I look like every other person between the ages of 30 and 40 in Northwest Portland. And while I was doing that, getting my unique haircut, someone in the barbershop was saying, as I was talking about this forum, he was saying, you know, I feel really bad about this, but I don't have any compassion for homeless people. He said, I've lived here a number of years. I see the same people on the same street corners asking me for the same amount of money every day. I have a suspicion of where that money is going, and my compassion for them went out the door years ago. I'm wondering what you hear from the business community about how homelessness affects them, their relationship with the people who are on the streets.
You know, this is a really interesting issue that we've looked at the Crime Commission, and also part of our Public Safety Action Committee downtown, and that is really unpacking homelessness, because it is, you know, there's so many different factors that contribute to someone being homeless. As Nan Roman mentioned, you know, 80% of the people who are homeless are there because of economic reasons. So they're just you know, one disaster away from becoming homeless, and that's 80% of the people who are homeless. But what we visibly see are probably the 20% who are homeless and disabled, either, you know, because of medical conditions or addiction or, you know, mental illness, and that's the more visible population that we probably see on the streets of our on the streets of City of Portland or in our public spaces. And, you know, the approaches to those two categories of people who are homeless are completely different. And one category, which is the more visible, comes into contact with police a tremendous amount, right? Because they're living in public and they're engaging in, you know, public living, and it's interfering with, you know, they're getting off the street because of their issues. So the approaches have to be completely different. And I think the business community is very much interested in making a difference that will alleviate the visible homelessness as well as the not so visible homelessness. But they want there to be some strategies that are really designed to accomplish the outcome of getting people off the streets.
Leo, I'm wondering, did you feel like you were a so-called invisible homeless person, given that, as you know, in your words, you weren't a druggie or a drunk?
Excuse me, yeah, well, actually, I don't call it invisible. The type of person, homeless person that I was, I call the I can't think of that word right now, but yeah, it's not the invisible, it's actually the hidden homeless. We actually hide, people like me actually hide from the public because we don't want to be labeled as a drunk, a druggie, a criminal, that kind of thing. We don't want to get involved with the crime. We don't want to get involved with the drunks, the druggies, and all that other stuff. So we actually hide. One of the things about this, there's a lot of us out, or people like me out there on the streets right now, And I try to encourage them to talk to everybody, to come on out, especially this kind of forum. But they don't want to come on out because they want to hide. They don't want to be stuck with that label. A lot of them have jobs, and they don't want their employer to see them. A lot of them have families. They don't want their families to know. And domestic violence is another thing. So they have a lot of issues out there, that why they don't want to come on out into the public. But there are, I would say it's a lot higher of homeless people out there that are what I call functioning homeless persons that can really, all they need is just a place to go, stabilize, and they're in and out of homelessness. Right to Dream too, which I'm a co-founder of, that's one of the places that, that we do need for right now, shelters, indoor, outdoor shelters, tent cities. We need these all over the place. In the interim, the beginning or before we get enough affordable housing or have
Leo,
this
let me just interrupt you
enough
for a
affordable
second.
housing.
People might not be familiar with Right to Dream 2, and there are people who are listening to us who are across the state, but this is next to the Chinatown Gate on Burnside, a community that has been living there on a property and for a time was being fined by the city for living there. And there's been a lot of questions about where that is going to end up. There was a time some talk about moving into another part of Old Town, to moving to the Pearl District. Do you think that Right to Dream 2 has been good for the homeless population in Portland? Do you think that there has been a backlash because of some of the stories that have been done about them?
Oh yeah, there's always going to be that backlash, because of what was said earlier about the way people perceive homelessness, the drunks, the druggies, the criminals, all this stuff like that. But there's a lot of homeless people, and it's a human thing to want to have a safe, secure place. If they don't have a safe, secure place, what's the other option from this Right to Dream 2? You get harassed by the police. You get sweeps. They take all your stuff. That's enabling homelessness. You don't get enough sleep out there. You're sleep deprived, and yet that's another thing of mental illness that happens to homeless people, and yet people don't realize this is what's happening to the vulnerable people out there, which is all the homeless people out there.
Let me ask Suzanne, we want to have a tangible goal. Obviously, 10 years ago, we wanted to end homelessness, and that didn't work out. So if we say to you, a year from now, what should be the goal for Portland and for Multnomah County? Where do you want to see us?
Well, first of all, I feel like we need the leadership to mobilize the private sector around this issue. And one way we can do that is, I spoke with a lot of my board members on this one issue, and we feel like we should set a goal that's manageable, that's reasonable, that's reachable, and that goal is ending homelessness in the population of veterans. And the reason why I say that is because we have got an effort underway at the federal level to fund that we can leverage those efforts and mobilize the private sector to offer incentives to do projects that will provide housing that is affordable or low-income housing. Where are the incentives to do those types of projects? That's where the leadership of our community really needs to get cracking. And then the final thing is, if we set that as a goal.
And what kind of incentives are you talking about?
Well, if you want a project and it's a block and someone owns that building and you want it converted into, affordable housing or low-income housing, what is the incentives that are offered, or what how much is it a cost-benefit analysis that goes into it as to what that project will be? Is it going to be high-end, condos, or is it going to be affordable housing? And those incentives are all play into the decisions made by developers. So that is an area where the private sector can be brought to the table as a really powerful partner. The final thing I would say about the goal, which I think is reachable on the veterans issue, it really leverages efforts around a goal that can be measured, and it would encompass people that cross over every category of homelessness, like Leo. That veterans population is something that everybody can get on board with right now. And, you know,
And why veterans instead of, let's say, children or families?
because there's substantial federal funding right now available to go towards that issue. There's veterans benefits, so we can leverage city and county funding with federal dollars. And that is, to me, really a win-win. Plus, it's patriotic.
And as we know, we're having trouble just getting veterans to see a doctor in this state. So there are a lot of things that veterans are needing right now in the state of Oregon and in Washington, to be frank. Matt, I want to ask you the same question. A year from now, we're sitting in the same place, and I'm able to say, we were able to do this for the homeless population in our area. What is it?
I think these are, I think I have some systemic priorities that I would probably place there. One is we need to translate our political will into resource. And that means taking the one-time resource that we're provided and actually moving into more permanent funding. The stability of that is going to make a significant difference, and the long-term stability of that is going to make a significant difference in the kind of dent we can put in homelessness in this community. The second thing I would do is make sure as a community we understand that homelessness is not or no longer just an issue that affects our downtown area. That in fact we need to look broader across our community, that homelessness is being defined in many different ways now. But while we do that, we have to recognize that it is not an either-or scenario. It is not just it's either downtown or it's out in East County, or downtown or it's in our parks. It's actually both that we have to invest. So while we're stabilizing funding and putting it into permanent budgets, we also need to find a way to increase that funding. And as Suzanne said, we need to find a way to leverage the other resources that exist out there, including federal resources and local resources and foundation resources as well.
Leo, as someone who told us you had trouble getting into transitional housing to begin with, is that a goal that you think is reachable in our area? Is there something else that you would like to see?
Well, yeah, I would like to see, the funding, for affordable housing. More funding for that. But also the mindset, again, of individuals of homelessness. There are homeless people really trying to get out. It's not always the drunks, the druggies that you always see. Again, there's the hidden homeless out there population that we need to get to. Also, I would like to see more of an effort, to back up, like Right to Dream 2, the rest area, tent cities or shelters in the interim, because this 10-year plan that we had and everybody's goal was affordable housing, all of a sudden we lost traction of the shelter system and there was more people out there on the streets. And yeah, we did have some affordable housing, but it got bigger and bigger and broader for the homeless community. So we do need those efforts to come on out. Also, I'd like to challenge everybody, not only in this community or in this room here and the people out there listening, but even broader than that, and that is starting the conversation of homelessness and how to get them all inside, whether it be a shelter, tent city, Right to Dream 2, the rest area, and affordable housing. Well, that's what we need to do right now.
Leo, what kind of affordable housing are you in right now?
Right now, I am, well, it's subsidized housing. Section 8 is where I'm at right now. Again, with the VASH program, they're excellent. I had a health crisis where I was on oxygen 24/7. 30% of my lungs was gone, and through the VETS program, they helped me on out through the health program. One of the things and the hardest things for me being out on the streets is when I was out there, they had 5-10-year waiting lists just to get on health care. And that is why a lot of us have that mentality of we have to stick it on out, because when we do try to go to the hospital, when we go to the emergency rooms, we do get this, oh, well, you need a regular doctor. You shouldn't be coming in here. And it was told earlier through the healthcare reform that a lot of the hospitals, they're losing money when the homeless people do come on in. And so they do have to have a percentage that they can look at, and then the other half, or the other percentage, they really can't help them on out, which is kind of hard for homeless people because they're out there in the elements. So, we do need these kind of efforts for the homeless people to get them stronger, to get them to be productive citizens out there. And I've seen that through Right to Dream 2 and indoor shelters in 10 cities.
We just have a few moments left before we're going to transition to our next panel. But I'm wondering from Suzanne, do you think that the private sector is on board with the homeless issue? Have you met resistance from members of businesses or leaders of businesses to helping this issue? Has the train left the station for them?
I have not encountered any resistance. And contrary, my board is made up of business leaders in the metro area, and they've chosen this topic to delve into and understand and ask questions about. My question is...
what is their incentive to do so?
Because we're pursuing a better community. And, this issue cuts across all levels, and it ultimately does impact public safety. People living outside are not safe. They're at a higher risk of being victimized. It is also not the vision that we should have for our city, is to have a lot of people living in the public spaces. People need to be sheltered, and there's no one that I'm encountering that's resistant to that. And when you've got a goal that everyone agrees with, it seems like that is a good situation to get some traction. So, I would just encourage the leadership. I mean, Nan Roman suggested we appoint a home czar, a homeless czar, so that someone is in charge and accountable to bring everybody to the table and really set the goals and bring people together, and people have skin in the game. I think a czar might be a good idea. I like the idea that we have a shared governance structure that has been undertaken recently, but who's the one person who's going to make it happen?
It's a very interesting question, and we will talk to our political leaders in just a moment. I want to thank the three of you for being here today.
Thanks for your patience while we adjust the stage. I want to take this time to fill you in on upcoming events here at City Club. Join us next Friday for a conversation about winning solutions to revitalize Old Town Chinatown. On Thursday, June 26th, you can join NLC's event, Why Behind the Weird? 10 Things Ado About Water and Sewer. The last Friday forum in June will be with Dennis McLaren, the regional administrator at the U.S. Environmental Protection Agency. He will discuss the recent Clean Air Act action that President Obama has taken. You can learn more about City Club events, purchase tickets, and become a member on our website, pdxcityclub.org. And now, back to our program.
Thank you very much. Okay, and as you can see, we're being joined now by our new Multnomah County Chair, Deborah Kafoury, making her first appearance since she has been officially in office. And Portland City Commissioner Dan Saltzman, who, as you know, is in charge of the Housing Commission. It is a pleasure to have both of you here. I want to start with that very interesting, provocative idea of having a czar. Maybe we can have a different name. Czar seems a little extreme, but someone who is in charge of homeless issues, not just for the city or not just for the county, but an umbrella person who would look over all of it. What do you think of that?
Well, I think we're on a path towards that, hopefully, with the governance structure that I think it sounds really wonky. It's definitely not sexy, but it is the key, I believe, to moving forward on this issue. Traci talked briefly about this, but the way the structure has been set up for dealing with homeless issues, where you have the county responsible for this group of folks and the city responsible for this group of folks, and then you have our other partners, all our nonprofit partners, we've done as good of a job as we can with that direction. We need this next step, which I think by getting everybody on the same page, so we're talking about the same issues, we have a shared set of outcomes, and then we can hold ourselves accountable. That's really the way we're going to get ahead of this
and
issue.
Who would be in charge of that? Who is the leader of that?
I think you're looking at us.
Okay.
Yep, you're looking at us.
So, oh, so you're not looking at him, you're looking at each other.
We're looking at,
It's
yes.
co-chaired by myself and Chair Kafoury.
Okay, so has that process started? How far along are we?
We have our first meeting coming up on June 27th, and since I have the mic right now, I'll take this opportunity to announce the other member that the county is appointing is the newly minted Commissioner Jules Bailey from Multnomah County.
So, Commissioner Saltzman, why should we believe that this process is going to work when the old process, as our chair just described, kind of went as far as it could?
Well, I just want to mention, in addition to myself serving on this executive committee, Mayor Hales will also be on it. And it also includes Home Forward, formerly the Housing Authority of Portland, Multnomah County, and the City of Gresham. So it really is an attempt to get all the decision makers around the same table to recognize that the resources we have to spend on issues around homelessness are limited, and it's best to get the most for our dollars if we're all making decisions on the same page. So, and I also want to say that the czar concept, I think many people in this audience are familiar with the City of Portland's kind of strange form of government, the commission form of government. Czars don't work well in this form of government. I can attest.
But I can understand the sentiment that was brought up earlier, because if there isn't one person in charge, and you just mentioned, first we started with 2 people, then we had a third, and now the mayor's involved. I mean, that's a lot of people, and I'm not sure who is calling the shots. Does there not need to be someone who is the king? the king of getting homelessness to end?
As I said originally, I think we may get to that point, but the fact that we've gotten to this point where we have this governance structure is a huge, huge step forward. It's been in conversation for 20 years. And the fact that we are here now.
Why on earth did it take 20 years?
Exactly, and that's why we're not going to sit around for another 20 years.
Okay, I hope not. Okay, so Commissioner Saltzman, when you look at the 10-year plan, which clearly did not work, what about that was the biggest failure?
Probably the biggest failure was calling it the 10-year plan to end homelessness. I think.
But I mean, should we not?
I mean, things emerge at the federal level. I think that's where the nomenclature came from, was from the federal law that was passed. It becomes the flavor of the month, and suddenly every city in the country is subsumed with its 10-year plan to end homelessness, where I think everybody at the table with a straight face realized we're not going to end homelessness in 10 years.
I know this
Plus,
is
the
extreme,
10-year plan
but
ran
didn't
into the
President
8-year
Kennedy say we're
recession.
going to the moon, and we went to the moon? I mean, do you not need to have a lofty goal, and do you not need to push yourself to it?
I would argue that, with all due respect to the people that got us to the moon, and it's no small accomplishment, ending homelessness is much more complex and much more expensive.
Is it? I don't know if it is. I mean, I'm not sure that it is. Because, when we heard Nan talk, she seems convinced that homelessness is an achievable goal. And we can disagree, and I'd like to hear if you do disagree with her, but I'm simplifying it, but her statement was essentially, the way you end homelessness is to provide more homes. And she said in the 70s, we didn't have as many people living under bridges or on sidewalks because there was affordable housing available to them. There were efficiency apartments that they could live in and transition up from there. So are you disagreeing with her premise that homelessness can end and that is an achievable goal?
I'm not disagreeing at all with her premise that we need more affordable housing. And to use Nan's example about the efficiency apartment, the great example of the debate we're having right now in the city of Portland is about the future of people being able to rent out their homes or their rooms in their homes to Airbnb. And that is going to have a direct impact on the supply of efficiency apartments and things like that. So I've proposed to my city council colleagues that we start capturing some of that lodging tax and dedicating it to our housing investment fund to increase the supply of affordable housing. I've also proposed, and the council has approved, a density bonus so that when builders are building buildings and they want to go higher, they either have to create affordable housing or pay money into a housing investment fund. We need to increase the dollars available for affordable housing. Federal dollars are always, problematic. They're either up or down, or they're not very reliable. Our our local urban renewal dollars are on the decline, so we need to start finding a more diverse array of funding sources to build more affordable housing. So I definitely agree with her on that point.
Chair Kafoury, I'm wondering, you've obviously watched this. This is a community that when it wants to get behind something, it gets behind it. I'll point to the fact that fluoride is not in our water as one example. I mean, there were parades marching down Alberta with marching bands. And that was a group that really got together and made something happen. Whether you agree or disagree with it, they did it. I don't see that happening for homelessness in our county and in our city. Do you?
I do, actually. I just spent 7 months on the campaign trail, and what I heard over and over again, whether it was talking with our business leaders in downtown Portland or families out in Gresham, people want to do something. They want to be involved. They just don't know how to get involved. And I think Suzanne said it very well. We have a lot of folks around the table. We have all you people here in the room today, in addition to many more. People want to help, they just don't know what to do. And that's why it's important that we as leaders and with people involved in the conversation have a specific plan. We have a tangible list of things to do. We talk about how much it's going to cost. We figure out how we're going to pay for it, and then we do it. That's what it's going to take to solve this problem.
So what is your idea that you want to see a year from now that we can say we checked it off?
Well, I think, first of all, what Suzanne talked about with ending veteran homelessness is really a goal that is within our grasp because we have this directive from the federal government that we can tack onto, and because it is obviously the right thing to do for these brave people who have given their lives for our country or dedicated their lives, that it's really the first step. But I think that having a plan, I know that I'm not a huge planner. I don't like to sit and say a plan is going to solve the problem. But if we don't have a plan, and we don't have measurable outcomes, and we don't have an idea of where we're headed, it's impossible to get there. So this governance committee is going to have set up a plan. So a year from now, we will know where to go, we'll know how much it's going to cost, and we'll know how to get there.
And Commissioner Saltzman, do you have a specific idea that you want to put out there that we can say a year from now has been solved?
Well, I would want to point out one thing. When you ask whether people still care about issues around homelessness or not, I think the election of Chair Kafoury, overwhelming election, is an indication that people do, because she is so associated with this issue, and I know she will continue to be. But I think, the issues I hope to see tackled a year from now are the shared governance, ending homelessness for chronically homeless veterans, increasing the resource pie, as we just spoke about a second ago. We need to find new, more creative avenues to generate more money for affordable housing. And finally, I'll say, is we need to work in partnership with the private sector. I mean, you may have noticed there's a multifamily construction boom going on in this city, but we're not capturing a fair share of that to be affordable. And we need to make sure that the tools we have, the incentives we can offer to developers to make more affordable housing really work for them. Many of them are too complicated, too much paperwork, too much hassle. And we need to make sure that, by the same token, many of the developers want to do affordable housing. They really want to do it because they're either altruistic or they say it's part of their bottom line mix. And we need to be working hard, both the chair, myself, and really all of us in government, to really marshal the forces of the private sector to help achieve the goals to really keep this city a great place to live and not turn it into a San Francisco where you only have the very high income and the very low income living.
And when you bring up San Francisco, the Oregonian did a story not too long ago where it talked about how Portland has a higher percentage of homelessness than San Francisco does. So there is something about Portland that is happening that in other cities isn't happening. Do either one of you know what makes Portland unique, and Multnomah County unique, that our problem would be higher than theirs?
Well, I guess I disagree with the premise that Portland is unique in that way. I've been to many cities around the country.
But these are statistics.
But I mean, San Francisco is one. People say and have been to New York City and said, wow, this is a much bigger city and there's no homeless folks on the street.
Hold on one second.
They spend $1 billion a year.
Hold on one second. The percentage of homelessness is higher here than it is in King County, Washington, San Francisco, and Hennepin County, Minnesota.
Right.
I mean, what's different about us?
I do think, though, that there are homeless people in every community in our city, and other communities have chosen to spend more money on the problem is one thing. As I said, New York City spends $1 billion a year because they have a right to shelter policy. I don't know how much San Francisco spends, but Seattle has a tax a levy that they spend to build affordable housing. Other communities have invested dollars in building affordable housing and helping people get off the streets. And it's something that we need to do a better job of here.
So should we have a tax? We've been talking about a tax for fixing our streets. We were talking about a street fee that caused an outrageous reaction from the community when that was brought up, and that's still in process. Are you suggesting that? I'm talking to, sorry, talking to our county chair.
I think
first.
that before we start talking about what tax we're going to raise or what fee we're going to raise, we need to figure out what our goals are. I think that that's, sorry to tell you what the city, but I think that's one of the problems that's been with the street fee is people don't know what the money is going to. If you give people a reason, you give them a goal, you give them an outcome, then they're much more likely to want to invest their dollars. I have not spoken to one person as I've been out on my campaign trail the past 7 months, be it people from the nonprofit sectors, the regular Joe on the street, or the business community. Everybody wants to help. They just need to know how to do it.
I was just going to submit a slightly different perspective on those cities. I mean, San Francisco, Seattle, Hennepin County, which is Minneapolis, St. Paul, are frankly, you know, sad to say, they're all more prosperous economies than Portland has been in the last 10 years. And one of the things we need to do to help end homelessness, get people into housing, is we need people to make more money. And one of the things I'm determined to tackle is increasing the minimum wage here so that people can afford to live where they work.
Well, that is an interesting, tangible idea. What about the chair's idea of perhaps having some sort of fee or a tax that would raise money specifically for ending homelessness?
Well, I think other cities have, as Seattle, they do have a housing levy, and I think that's a fair game topic to be discussed, whether that should be a city or a county. You know, I'm up for it. We have a Portland Children's Levy, which is a dedicated tax to investing in kids. So the concept is not alien to Portlanders and residents of Multnomah County.
Why do you think that was successful? And I know that was a project of yours. Why do you think that was successful and the street fee hasn't been? What can we learn from that in case you were to pursue something in the homeless arena?
A lot of reasons I think it was successful is first, we limit our administrative expenses to no more than 5%. So 95 cents of every dollar is going straight to programs that make a difference. Second, we only invest in programs that are proven to work. We don't invest in pilot projects or demonstration programs, only those programs that have a track record. And we measure our successes. We measure our investments. I think those are some of the ingredients, and the decisions are made by a citizen oversight committee. And I think that's another important ingredient that's missing from the discussion of the street maintenance fee.
I want to ask the county chair about the division that you spoke about at the very beginning, the division of responsibilities between the city and the county. What can be done now to clarify who's in charge of what? I know the county is supposed to be really providing the services, is it not?
The county has been primarily responsible for homeless families and homeless youth, and the city has been responsible for homeless individuals, adult. I don't know that we need to spend a lot of time making a further division of that. I think we actually need to pool our resources and our ideas and our partnership, broaden the pie to include more voices at the table, and then figure out how to get to the end game, which is to get people off the streets and into housing. I mean, no one I know out there, except now all of you today, understands this division, or how it got there, and why it's necessary. We really all need to work together. It's the only way we're going to solve the problem.
Would you be in favor of having either the county or the city in charge of all of it, and then one of them writes a check, just so that it's coming from one place?
That may be the end goal. I don't know. I think we could spend a lot of time figuring out which jurisdiction should do the job, and then it would be harder to keep the other jurisdiction at the table. Then I think having some skin in the game is really important. I'm anxious to get to work on this governance committee. I want to give this a shot before we figure out where we're going to go next. I want to try this new structure that we've set up because I think there's a lot of potential.
Okay, I have asked a lot of questions, and I know people sitting out here would like to ask some questions, so we're going to give you that opportunity right now. As you know, if you're a City Club member, this is a part of your membership that you can ask the tough questions of our city leaders, and I hope that you take advantage of it. However, I want to let you know this is not time for you to do your speech. This is time for an actual question. So I want to limit these questions to 30 seconds, and I'd prefer if there are more like 15 seconds so we can get more of you to ask your good questions. So please, this is not a time to go off and stand on a soapbox. It's to get some information from our city leaders. So do we have a question right here? Shall we begin? Say your name, please.
Ted K., City Club member. Homelessness may be a national problem, not just a local problem. So if we were to solve homelessness completely in Portland, wouldn't those very solutions be a magnet attracting more homeless people from other cities?
You know, the shorthand phrase for that, it's the attraction theory. That is, if you do a lot of things here in a city or a county for people who are homeless, do you attract more? I frankly don't believe that theory. I think every city in a temperate climate like Portland or in a sunny climate like California will say the same thing, that people are being sent who are homeless, or people are gravitating to that city because they're homeless because they see more services in that particular city or county. I just don't think that's a major factor in what contributes to homelessness here in the city and the county.
I do want to say, to answer that question as well, add on that you raise a good point, though, which is that this is not just something that we should work on in our little bubble of Portland or Multnomah County. We need the federal government to take a bigger role. We need the state government to take a bigger role. This is not something that we're just going to be able to solve here in Portland, and then the rest of the country is on the same path.
Leo, did you want to say something about that? I saw you put your hand up. You want to just go to that mic there? Do you think that providing better services in one city acts as a magnet?
No, actually, I would say that it's the homeless people coming out of the woodworks, the people that are out there right now that are hiding, that are becoming on out. More of those people will be showing their faces because they do want to get on out of homelessness. So if you have the right resources, they'd be coming on out of the woodworks, and that's what the people that you would see is those individuals coming on out. That's what I've seen. I've seen a lot of that. When we do start a tent city, a shelter, I've seen people coming on out and saying, yeah, I was camped out in the woods. I was hiding from everybody, but now I see that this is legal. I can come in. I can be a productive citizen and work my way on out. So coming from the streets, that's what I see.
Thank you, Leo. Let's go to our next question here, sir.
Bill Dickey, City Club member. What is the, well, first of all, I'm tempted to ask Reggie how much money Gannett puts into the social services community in Portland, but I'm not going to ask that question. I am... Well, just because you're being a little judgmental today, and I don't think that's best in a monitor, but that's my own opinion.
Okay, I don't believe I'm being judgmental. I believe I'm just following up and asking questions. Gannett is the company that owns KGW, and they just bought us a few months ago.
So how much did Belo put in?
I'm sorry?
How much did Belo put in?
I really don't know.
Okay, investigate it, just for my own personal, and you can get back to me. Your producer's a friend of mine. He can tell me.
Okay, let's ask your question.
Good. What's the difference between panhandling and homelessness? 25 years ago, there was a program in town that said real change is better than spare change, and you'd pick up these cards at the counter, and you were, asked to give these to panhandlers. And are panhandlers part of the homelessness, or are they just people out there making money?
Well, I guess my own personal opinion is I think, as maybe the person who was sharing the barbershop with Reggie, I think there's a little bit of compassion fatigue with the people that we see standing on the freeway ramps, we see standing on the corners, panhandling. And I go back to something that was told to me by somebody who I have a lot of respect and who actually happens to be in this room today, and that's Jean DeMaster, who told me a long time ago, you should never give spare change to people because it's only going for drugs and alcohol. So she did say that. And I guess she stands by that because she just echoed that. So I like the programs we had in the past about real change versus spare change and other ways like that. But I do believe that is kind of the 80-20 issue. The 20% of the most visible people are the panhandling element, and where it's the 80%, it's the Leo Rhodes of the world who are just going about doing their own thing, but they need housing.
This is a perfect time to call out one of my favorite organizations, Street Roots. And I think that the model that they have set up is so fantastic. People who are homeless or formerly homeless can sell papers, which is, by the way, one of the best periodicals we have in our community, if not the best. And even though I have a subscription, when I see someone out there on the selling of Street Roots, I'll give them a donation anyway because I know that they're working really hard and doing something that is going to better their lives.
Next question, sir.
Stephen Kafoury, City Club member. One of the most visible elements of our street homeless people are the willful, voluntarily homeless. And I don't hear anybody talking about them until it comes time to have a street cleaning because of the Occupy movement or something. What can we do? And I know that's a lot of the problem the business has, a lot of the people coming downtown being afraid of coming to Portland. What can we do about the voluntary homeless?
Do you believe that that's a sizable population, or is it a part of the visibility issue that we're just discussing?
I personally, sorry, Dad, I personally don't. You know, one of the things about being a Kafoury is there's a lot of us around town, so inevitably, I'm at an event. No. I think while those might be some of the folks that you're seeing on the street, I don't believe that many people want to be homeless. I mean, I think that there are people for whom they're struggling with addiction and they don't want to give up their addiction. They're physically incapable of giving up their addiction to move into the housing requirements that are set. Or there are people who are struggling with mental illness and don't feel comfortable. I mean, there are a multitude of reasons because, as Traci talked about, there's every reason under the sun why people are homeless in the first place. I think that given an opportunity, people would much rather live inside than live on the streets.
If we can go to our next question, I think this will probably be our last question, so go ahead.
Jean DeMaster, City Club member. We know that on any night in Multnomah County, 20 to 30% of the homeless population are children under the age of 17. Can you talk about what we can do to ensure that homeless infants, homeless toddlers, homeless school children who are homeless right now don't grow up to be homeless adults, and how we can prevent more children from becoming homeless and having to attend school while they're homeless?
Well, I know that it's a high priority of Chair Kafoury's and mine to really make sure that we invest resources. You know, we've been talking a lot today about sort of the stereotypical homeless person, and that evokes an image of a male. Let's not forget that recent street count showed a lot of women on the streets, a lot of women and children, and we need more family housing. We need more options to get people into stable family housing, and I know we have a great county mobile housing team that will actually, when there's a report, like a SWAT team, if there's a report of a homeless family, this team will be there to get that family into housing right away, to start breaking those patterns of homelessness and start providing stable environments that kids will thrive in. So I think that's one of the solutions. But it's a big issue.
And I think we've talked a lot about problems and how we can do things better, but we haven't celebrated our successes. And we have done some really creative and innovative programs over the past 5 years, both at Multnomah County and at the city, where we have these rapid housing specialists, where we go out into the community and find families and put them directly into housing. We have invested more dollars. We invest more dollars today than we did 5 years ago. And we've learned that by giving people the right amount of resources, sometimes it's just a few months' rent, sometimes it's a lot more, but just by giving people the right amount of resources, we can break the cycle of homelessness. I'm confident that we can do this, and I just think it's going to take all of us working together.
I think we can all agree there's nothing more heartbreaking than talking, and I know both of you have done so, I have done so on numerous stories, talk to children who are homeless, children who are going to school every day and have no place to live that is permanent, and that has got to stop. It just seems like something that is a crisis that we can't live with in our community. I want to thank both of you, Commissioner Saltzman and our new chair, Kafoury. Thanks for being here, and thank you to our panel members who were here before. It was a pleasure being here. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
We've run out of broadcast time for further questions, and we'll have to stop for today. And as we close, please join me in offering our sincere thanks to our panelists, Suzanne Hayden, Traci Manning, Matt Morton, Leo Rhodes, Deborah Kafoury, and Dan Saltzman. And special thanks to our moderator, Reggie Aqui, for a great job with our panelists today. Thanks for listening.